Hello and welcome to the new teachers presentation for the 2025-2026 school year. I would like for you to take a look at this card and identify with the salutation that you see. In this case, I see that hola is a Spanish greeting for hello from my country, which is Puerto Rico. Had this presentation been live, I would have asked for volunteers to stand up and speak about the salutation from their country. Today we are made up of so many immigrants, and we're just a melting pot from the United States, and I would venture to guess that in this audience and those of you who are watching this presentation come from a different country. And so I want to greet you and say hello. Okay. So today we are going to go over some tips as you prepare to start the new school year. Today we'll talk about tips to create a welcome environment, effective L instruction, debugging myths about L's, and some resources that'll be available to you. I want to tell you that the first quick tip that I can share with you that is most important as you are preparing for the new school year and when you're meeting anyone, remember to always smile and greet people. That is the most important tip that I can give you for this school year. It will go a long way, and it sends a message non-verbally to your recipient, to whoever you meet. A smile is a way to start the day. So let's talk about the school year and the first impressions. You never get a second chance at a first impression. And so after you smile and greet your people, your students, your families, that's your first impression. But your students are going to come to your classroom, and that's going to be their first impression. And a rich print classroom that is thoughtful, meaningful, and colorful is essential. If you look at this picture that I have here, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this classroom. But I notice a lot of colorful things. There are meaningful things. And the one thing I like to point out is this teacher in particular perhaps knew that some students were coming from different countries, and she has flags of some of those countries. Perhaps, I wonder. But that's a good way to introduce geography, or for your students to identify with their country of origin or their family's country. Remember to always meet and greet each student daily, and inviting the family to school events, which creates a bond. When you meet and greet a student in the morning at your door or online outside to start the day, it sets the precedence for the day. Your students notice you, they see your face, and when a smile is on there with a healthy and cheerful good morning, they are brighten up, their eyes light up. And also with the families, make sure that you are greeting and talking to the families, introducing yourself to whatever family member brings the child to school, or if they come to your classroom. You got to start creating those bonds. It's important that you start the school year with posted rules and expectations, and make sure that students understand them. Some students don't really understand or know exactly what you mean when you give some rules and the expectations for the classroom. This may be their first time hearing rules and having expectations. They may come from a family or culture where their customs are different, and we need to make sure that they are understanding exactly what the expectation is at the school, in your classroom, however you see fit. And always display students' work, acknowledging their effort, and even if they're not getting the highest mark, identify and affirm their improvement. I had a teacher once who would show not only exemplary work, but also work that is improving and striding towards exemplary work. So it's good to post that and to affirm the students, making sure that you are acknowledging their growth. And important, allow students to have a voice. Students have a lot to share and to say. And we need to facilitate that. Cut it off when the story goes beyond. I had one student who wanted to tell me about their vacation, their family vacation to the Grand Canyon. And I said, well, thank you, that's a nice story. But getting together with family is the point that I wanted to make, and you share that right on time. So use that. Let students allow students to share their stories and have a voice in your class. Create that atmosphere, and make sure that you don't allow students to make fun of other students. Make sure that you challenge and address any inappropriate comments or behavior right away with students in your classroom, should you allow them to have a voice and someone think it's funny or may say something that is inappropriate. Okay, so yeah, we want to create a classroom that is inviting, that is thoughtful, that kids see and are excited about coming into and looking forward to the work that they're going to be doing and the fun stuff that they'll be creating in the class. The most important thing is knowing your students. You must get to know your students. It is likely that you will have a student who is an L or refugee student. L's comprise 10.5% of students enrolled in our schools nationwide. So the likelihood that there is an L in your class is it's most likely that they will be in that class. It's a good chance that they will be. Refugee children are usually enrolled in L program. So I bring that up because this statistic came out in 2007. That was pre-COVID, and also with the recent events that are happening worldwide, with all these countries and leaders who are trying to take over, in case in point, Ukraine and Russia. Russia's trying to come take over Ukraine. There are some refugee students, refugees coming from Ukraine, and also from the Middle East. A big movement from there. And think of Palestine. A lot of students from that area who are also, and just the whole Middle East section is having in the United States, we're having an influx of people trying to come and have refugee status. So again, getting to know your students and where they're from, their customs and cultures, their families, is vital. Because you may get a student who you think is bright because he doesn't say a word. The old proverb that says, better to be quiet and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. So most kids just stay quiet because they don't know what to say, and we seem to assume that, they must be catching on and doing well. So you have to do more formative assessments and get to know your students as they come to your class, and be aware that these students and children come from difficult backgrounds. I brought up Ukraine, and children who may have migrated to the United States from Ukraine have been exposed to some harsh conditions, war conditions, and that is sad to say. And you won't know until you get to know and talk to a student or find out where they're from or their family. I've also come to find that a lot of immigrants that are crossing the border in the United States from Mexico come as far south from the Americas as far south as Colombia and Honduras, who come up here. And I have found some migrant workers who move from Florida to the Carolinas and back and forth during the crop seasons for farming. The family picks up and moves. And it wasn't until I sat with a student and asked, what does your parent do, that they shared this story with me, that they were going back and forth. And so sometimes our children, our students are home with extended family members or even friends who, to try and keep the stability, educational stability of our children, the family may decide, may tell a friend to take care of their child until they return. That's not unusual. I have found in Florida at my school. So, but you won't know that because you have to follow your curriculum and everything that your assistant principal is telling you to do, and your principal wants you to do. And you have to follow and get ready for that big test date. But take the time to sit down and get to know your student. And if you haven't now, I'm going to share some recommended EL strategies, English language learners strategies that could be helpful. First off, don't make assumptions. Be open-minded and learn from your students. I put that there because I, as a Spanish-speaking Puerto Rican, I thought that coming to the United States, and I know exactly what the Spanish student is going through and experiencing. But my experience from Puerto Rico, my family coming from Puerto Rico, is way different than someone who, let's say, is coming from Honduras, crossing the border illegally, and that experience of crossing that border, it is heartbreaking to hear the stories that these children tell you, if you ever get a chance. So, but my perspective, my assumption was that I speak Spanish, so I'm way ahead, and I was far from that. I had to open up and learn from my students what they go through. One child who crossed the border told me about a crossing through a desert where there was no water for 3 days, and she thought she was going to die. I can't imagine that. And my parents, when they migrated here from Puerto Rico, came over, they took a plane and came over. So certainly my experience, my family's experience and customs were way different than those immigrants that are coming illegally from Mexico or from other countries, from abroad, even from Europe. Europe is also going through some difficult times, and a lot of migrations with the Muslims as well. So don't make assumptions, be open-minded, learn from your students. The only way you're gonna find out is to ask and sit down individually, one-on-one with your students. And if you find that you do have a student that needs help, struggling, I like to pair students to create a buddy system. So if possible, I like to find someone who speaks the same language, if not from the same country, and help. And even if they don't speak the same language, it's good to pair someone. It empowers the student who's supposed to be the mentor, and it helps the mentee, the one who's being supported. And it also helps in instruction, so that way when you differentiate and you have students who are excelling, you can split them off and provide some extra support one-on-one to your L student. So yeah, but pairing the students together is a great buddy system. And I like to, in my classroom, I have a big map on the wall. And one of the exercises that I like to run in my class is to have a student come to the map and with a little sticky dot, put a dot on the country where they came and to share a little bit. So it's kind of like a point and tell or show and tell, but actually you're using the map so that way you can identify where your students are coming from. A lot of my students said, "Oh, I come from Florida," and then I would say, "Well, I would ask them to find out if their parents came from another country," and some would share more about their family, how they got to Florida. And yeah, we'll still have homegrown, bona fide Americans who were born in the United States since way back when, and they too are getting a lesson on geography and also different cultures. So, but that helps, with your class to start understanding about different cultures, different people, and different customs, which is important. And you're creating a classroom that allows, and not just allows, but it also opens the door for diversity and for that conversation to take place. That's part of the, let student voice. You want students to be able to share, and you want to affirm and dignify them and from where they're from and their country and their customs. So it is important that we embrace diversity. And embracing diversity is not just you, but creating a classroom that embraces diversity and opens the door for that. So let's be open-minded and learn from my students and embrace and open our arms wide to welcome those students in, especially those who are from a different country. So now, as we're thinking, you're wondering probably, I'm pretty well versed, prepared, but I would like to try and help you with some tips that debug the myths about refugees and L's, and just people who are learning English, okay? That's the key, and it's not just students from other countries. If you are doing preschool, or kids who are just first grade, elementary level, lower levels, people seem to think that children can learn another language easily. Language, the English language especially, is sophisticated. There's a lot of rules that you have to follow, syntax, noun and verb agreement. So it's just a sophisticated language that you just don't learn, and you don't know the prior knowledge that a student can bring or prior education that they've had. So you're not sure, where these children, came from, or, their background, if English is even a part of their home life. So children, do not learn another language easily like that. It doesn't come, just because they're developing, and their brain is like a sponge absorbing everything. Language is still a sophisticated, especially the English language, is a very sophisticated, hard thing to master. So some people like to focus on just vocabulary and say that would help. Now, they would, again, this is just learning a word, how to say. I like to think of, a baby as they're learning, there are some words they may pick up, like mama, ball, but they still are not, and of course, they're babies, they're still haven't fully developed their brains and capacity, to put sentences in. But that's what I'm talking about. Vocabulary is just the word, and it doesn't help with learning the language of English and speaking English. Vocabulary is just that. It's just you can identify something, but it's not the. Well, I'm saying you can identify something as a noun where you're saying chair. I'm thinking when I had an L student, and I would label different items in my classroom, like I would write out window or chair, desk. Those are vocabulary words and would help build. But to write this, to speak a sentence, I want to sit in this chair. That takes time. That takes more work. And so, but the vocabulary, has helped to identify. So moving on. So that's another myth, that will help them learn the language if you just teach them vocabulary. And that's not true because, again, we know it's a hard language. Okay, moving on. I also, some people see L's students that they learn English the same way. I beg to differ. Again, we don't know the background, the mindset. We don't know if, the student is, suffering from a disability. We don't. Every child is different. And, it might be a child who's, a visual learner, or a child who has strong auditory skills, or, so we just don't know physically, and also their environment that they've came from that is conducive to learning. So, especially another language. We don't know if education is even important. In some families, again, I'm referring to a family that migrates a lot. If it's in the child shared with me that their older sibling doesn't go to school because the student didn't like school, and the family says, well, then you have to come with us and work in the field. So as they get older, the mindset, the importance, goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The education is the salvation of the poor man, but the poor man is not going to get his stomach fed by just going to school. And I'm just saying that's the mindset of some families who are just trying to make ends meet, who are just trying to get food on the table or a roof over their head. We have some children who come from that environment, that struggle. The socioeconomic status of some of our children, would bring tears to your eyes that there are some people in the United States that are, at below the poverty level and just barely making it. So, again, you don't know. Not all students, learn the same way. And I just wanted to make sure that you are open and just, don't have any assumptions about that, and be mindful that your child, your student may come from that environment. Moving forward, I know you probably have a lot of questions. And first and foremost, your administration and colleagues, including your ESOL teacher, can help you as, you encounter a student who may be an L and you're wondering, what am I going to do? I'm not ready for this. I got to get my class, I got to get them to follow this curriculum and get this done by such and such a time and date for getting ready for the tests. I know there's high stakes with this test, but those tests will come and go. The student will still need to be supported, and you have support there with your administration and your ESOL teacher who can give you some strategies and support there. Also, professional development trainings and seminars are available. Professional organizations are there to help out and get you equipped for that classroom experience in case you encounter that. Also, this presentation, the resources for this presentation came from Welcoming Refugee Students, Strategies for Classroom Teachers, which was produced by BREA, the Bureau of Refugee and Immigrant Assistance. That was new for me. I am glad that I came across this resource. Also, another resource is the English Language Learner, a policy research brief by the National Council of Teachers of English. So with that information that I received there, I put this together to help you get some tips and get you ready for this school year. I hope this is helpful, and I hope you have a great 2025-2026 school year, and good luck.